I'm going to be discussing a few very important points. Point number one is the difference between deterrence and vengeance, critical difference. Point number two, why morality must come from God. Point number three, why the study of Hasidic philosophy is so fundamentally important in today's day and age. And lastly, that why we do things is very often as important as what we are doing. Because if what we do is done for the wrong reason, often it will have absolutely no impact. It will only have negative impact. A perfect example, if you criticize someone, but the reason why you're criticizing them is not out of care for them, they will not hear a word and you will create greater division. You did what you were supposed to. You're trying to help them, but you're really not out for their benefit. But when you criticize someone for them, that means you have why you're doing it is as proper as what you're doing, then they can hear you. That would be the example. And I want to begin with a historic event that happened in Israel, which is until today a very problematic moment in the history of Israel, which many people unfortunately are still using against Israel. This event occurred in 1953, the precursor to current day terrorism in Israel, which is the current day terrorists that the Palestinians send into Israel, and all of the suicide bombers were individuals who are called in Arabic Fedayins. With the Fedayins were individuals who would come into Israel. This was right after the 1948 and went on for many years. And they would terrorize and murder Jews. And between 1948 and 1953, the Fedayins murdered at least 300 Jews. And it came to a point where they decided that Ben-Gurion, who was then the prime minister, decided that they must create a special unit that is going to be responding to the Fedayins, and the response is going to be so overwhelming that it will convince the Arabs that it's not worth it for them to terrorize the Jewish people. We have learned since then that there's no way that you can disincentivize people who actually glorify death. But at that time, and for many, many years, probably until October 7th, unfortunately, we were still buying into some belief that there's some way we can actually negotiate with these people. And so they created a unit called Unit 101, which was designed specifically to, whenever there would be an attack by the Fedayins, this Unit 101 would infiltrate into Arab communities and retaliate in a very strong way. In 1953, there was a horrific and very violating attack by the Fedayins in a town called Yehud, which is a Jewish town, which was in central Israel, and that's why it was so violating. The Fedayins reached far deeper into Israel than they had beforehand, and this was a real threat and really terrorized all of the citizens in Israel. And so there was the decision then that the Unit 101 would go in and they would have an overwhelming response. This is the very infamous Qibya massacre, and that's when Unit 101 went in at night to a town called Qibya, an Arabic town, and during this event they blew up 41 homes. They killed 69 civilians. Exactly what happened, we have differing accounts on, and we're not quite sure actually what happened. Many of the people from this commando unit said that they believed that because there were many people walking down the road, that they knew that Qibya was going to be attacked by Unit 101, and therefore this Unit 101 believed that the town was empty. So when they threw grenades into the homes, they believed they were just blowing up homes and not killing people. And it was at night. And only afterwards did they find out, in fact, that they killed people. And there's good evidence to argue this way because they, in fact, saved certain people that they found out, certain Arabs that they found that were injured. Other people argued that they did know. And of course, there are many different sides to the story. Who was the who is the leader, the head of Unit 101, one of the greatest hawks in the Israeli army at that time, which was Ariel Sharon, the famous military general in the IDF, who was severely injured in 1948. He's as a young teenager, yet he remained. If you read his history, his biography, he remained a very fierce fighter and general, rising to the ranks of general in 1967, etc., etc. Then went into politics. This is something that the Arabs point to as an event which remains a stain on Israel for having done this. And after this event occurred, there was actually an article that was written by a rabbi who compared this event to a biblical event. And that biblical event was the event that with our forefather Jacob's daughter, Yaakov's daughter, Dinah. Before I go there, I want to tell you that this as wrong, as tragic, I should say. We don't know if it was wrong or not because we don't know what the unit knew, what the commando unit knew when they went in. But as tragic as this was, that so many innocent civilians were killed, 69 innocent civilians were killed, which is not the way the IDF operates. We do know that Jordan's border patrol changed significantly after this event. And in fact, they started taking their border patrol much more seriously to stop the Fedayins from actually getting into Israel because of the response that they got. Just an interesting side point that will not justify in any way the murder of innocent civilians. However, in this story, going to the comparison this rabbi made with the biblical story, the story is that our forefather Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather, he has left his corrupt uncle Laban, and he comes back to the land of Israel, and they're living in the land of Israel by the city of Shechem, and his daughter Dinah goes out, to explore, maybe find friends or whatever it was, and Shechem, that's who the city was named after, finds her, kidnaps her, violates her, and then comes to Jacob and says, I would like to marry your daughter. So Jacob waits for his sons to come home. They were out there, shepherds, they're out in the fields. When they came home, the sons were infuriated that this individual would violate their sister. They were outraged. And then he wants to marry her. So they said to him, well, if we cannot marry into a family that is uncircumcised. If you circumcise everyone in your town, then we can have our family marry in with your town and your neighborhood as well. And they did that. And after they were on the third day after circumcision, which is the most painful day, Shimon and Levi, two of the sons of Jacob, of Yaakov, went into the city of Shechem and killed all of the men. They killed them all out. And when Jacob hears about this, he says, "What did you do? You have put me into a state of confusion, and ashamed me in front of all of the people who live in this land. And we are few. They'll all gather upon us and they will kill us." It's very interesting to note how Jacob responded to what his two sons had done. He didn't criticize what they had done. He didn't reprimand them for doing something which is immoral. He simply said, it wasn't a strategic act because now we are in danger. It so happens that right after the Torah says, Vayehi chitas Elokim, that the fear of God was on all of the nations around them. And thank God there was no, they weren't in danger. However, that was his only concern. Clearly, their father had no issue with what they did in and of itself. He was only concerned about the ramifications of it. We have to pay close attention to this because the two brothers, Shimon and Levi, respond to their father and said, "What? We're going to let our sister just become abused by people?" Essentially, is what they said, and the Torah doesn't give us any response of what Yaakov says back. Meaning, their father doesn't respond to that because he agrees with them. He was silent. right? The question is, when Jacob, Yaakov, is on his deathbed, and he calls all of his sons to bless them, there are certain sons he reprimands. And Shimon and Levi, the two brothers who killed out the men of Shechem, he reprimands them. And he says that your tools are the tools of my brother Esau, my brother Esau, right? The sword. In your anger, you killed a man. Is that the way you conduct yourself? He reprimands them. And it seems like he's reprimanding them for the event that occurred in Shechem. So on one hand, he doesn't reprimand them immediately after it happens, yet on his deathbed, he does reprimand them. What exactly was Yaakov's position? And the Lubavitch Rebbe explains this. What we need to understand is, on what basis did Shimon and Levi kill out the city? On the basis, the Rambam, Maimonides, explains that there are 7 Noahide laws that God has given to all of humanity. All of humanity is obligated to follow these laws, and when we don't follow these, when humanity, not the Jewish people, when humanity doesn't follow these laws, society begins to fall apart. And amongst the 7 Noahide laws is that you're not allowed to violate a woman. Amongst the 7 Noahide laws, that's one of the 7. Another one of the 7 is that you're not allowed to, that a society must have dinim, they must have laws. You must have some type of a justice system. There must be laws wherever people live that guide people to behave appropriately. Whether the laws are better or worse, but there's some structure there must be. And when someone violates the 7 Noahide laws, they are deserving of capital punishment. Because if we don't have these laws observed, then all of humanity will not be able to survive. So when Shimon and Levi went and killed all of the men in that city, he did so because Shechem violated a woman, and the entire city went along with it, and none of them actually held him accountable. They were a lawless city. They were a danger to humanity. And according to the laws of the 7 Noahide laws, which all of humanity at that time was living by, or they were violating, that if you violate it, you deserve, then the person gets capital punishment. And that it was on that account that Shimon and Levi actually killed all of them in the city. And that's the reason why Jacob did not, or their father Yaakov did not reprimand them. However, another event happened later in the lives of Shimon and Levi. And what was that? That was that Shimon and Levi, later on in their lives, they were the 2 brothers who took their brother Joseph, their brother Yosef, who all the brothers were very upset at. They were envious of, they were upset at. And it was the 2 of them that threw him into a pit of snakes and scorpions, which could have killed him, easily killed him. It was only at the last moment that Yehuda, the brother, came and said, what are we gaining by killing our brother? Unless at least we'll sell him as a slave. We don't need to kill him. But Shimon and Levi were the ones who threw him into the pit. Why did they throw him into the pit? Because they were furious at Yosef, at their brother Yosef, at their brother Joseph. When their father was on the deathbed, the father told them, you see, when you killed out the city of Shechem, I trusted that you did that you're doing that was coming from a good place. Why you were doing that was because you were upholding justice. They violated some of the 7 Noahide laws, and therefore you were killing them out. But when I saw what you did to your brother Yosef, and that you were willing to kill your own brother because you were angry, that puts into question what you did in the city of Shechem, because that was also probably because of anger, because you have an anger issue. And if you have an anger issue, that's a major problem. If you did it out of anger, that was wrong. Even what you did in the city of Shechem would be wrong if in fact it was done out of anger. And that's why he reprimands them on their deathbed, demonstrating that even though they did the right thing, if they did it for the wrong reason, then what they did is now tainted. And it is not okay to kill people out of anger. It is okay out of justice, but it's not okay out of anger. This is the enormous lesson that we learn from this story. And so why we do, so, when Unit 101 went into Qibya, the questions, were they going in out of vengeance or they were going in out of justice? There's a very big difference between vengeance and justice. And that's the reason why I stated right after October 7th, when I spoke to our synagogue, that everything Israel is doing now is not out of vengeance. They're not going in carpet bombing. They're going to eliminate evil. That is the only approach that decent and moral people take, which is why the IDF is the most moral and decent army in the entire world, hands down. You can't compare any other army even close to the measures that the IDF takes. Because why we do something is as important as what we're doing. Because if the why is off, then the what is going to be off too. And it will always catch up to us. If we do the right thing for the wrong reason, the right thing that we did for the wrong reason will always catch up to us. Case in point, arguably, because we don't know the facts, but Ariel Sharon was the one who led this unit and this massacre in Qibya. And what did he do at the end of his life? He was the one who gave back Gaza. We have to be aligned with the why when we're doing a particular act. And we struggle with this because we are emotional beings. And very often our emotions get the best of us. But when they do, they will severely taint what we are doing. What's the solution? The solution is developing ourselves so that we are not emotionally driven people, but we are mind-driven people, and the mind formulates through the understanding that we have and the perspective that we have, formulates our emotions, and our emotions follow what we understand and not the reverse. This is a fundamental principle in the Hasidic philosophy. Moach shalit al halev, the mind ruling over the heart, being thoughtful, not just being instinctive. When we find ourselves in an emotional state, slow down. Don't deal with it now because I'm too emotional. Sleep over it. Calm down. Try and look at it from a clear perspective. Speak to someone else who doesn't have the emotions, is not attached to the event. Right? There are many ways of doing this. However, the study of the book of Tanya, which we begin studying an annual cycle of on the Yud Tes Kislev, the 19th day of Kislev, which happens to be this Friday in the year 5785, 2024. We begin the annual study of Tanya, and the book of Tanya goes through a thorough process of spiritual development for every person, so that we can understand the spiritual makeup of the world, the psychological makeup of our own self and our own souls, the relationship a human being has with God, the responsibility God has put upon us, has given us, and the reason why he put us in this world. And when we study that, these are the tools for us being a healthy person. Healthy meaning that we can actually make sure that what we are doing is being driven by a why which is healthy and not chaotically out of raw emotion. And that's the reason why the Rebbe it wrote to so many people how critical it is nowadays for us in our time and generation to study Hasidic philosophy so that we are stable in our approach to things. Here's the thing. Even when it comes to religion, Judaism, right? Observing Judaism, very often we will do Judaism, but we're not being Judaism. What that means is we are doing religion, but it's not enough to do the things that Judaism tells us to do, although that is very important. But if we want it to be wholesome, sound, and healthy, we have to make sure why we're doing it is invested in what we are doing. If my being religious is all about me being religious, so that I should be a religious person and a good person, right? Doing the right thing, it's about doing Judaism. And in today's day and age, people growing up in today's generation are not inspired by that, because they want something deeper and something more real, more authentic. And what is more authentic is when we are doing Judaism, with the why that's authentic, not about me being a religious person, but about God needing me to do this in this world now because we were put here for a mission and for a purpose. And that we get deeply from Hasidic philosophy. So I encourage you to join the daily study of Tanya and the annual cycle beginning this Friday, and making ourselves much more beautiful and wholesome individuals.